My guest, Edie Weinstein, is all about getting people to live full and satisfying lives, especially those people who've had to overcome traumas and other unpleasant issues to get there. Edie is known as the Hug Lady and the Bliss Mistress, and has been speaking and writing about wellness and mental health for decades. She's the author of several works, including The Bliss Mistress Guide to Transforming the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. And I'm so happy she's joining us. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Edie.
You. This is exciting. You were talking about dreams. That's one of my most favorite ways of processing life. I've found, and as I'm sure you know, dreams are kind of a spillover from our day, the things that are going on, and that every aspect of the dream is part of the dreamer. So you might want to ask yourself, what do you order off the menu? Do you have to have what's specifically offered, or can you say, oh no, I really want to do this? So in the dream, you're the menu, you're the food, you're the wedding venue, you're the paper, all that stuff. So I have totally bizarre dreams, even more now, since the pandemic has been going on than ever before. So there are times when I'm really glad to wake up.
Well, tell me, have your COVID dreams been unpleasant dreams, or have you had happy dreams as well?
Both. A lot of them have been about Nazis chasing me, about hiding, about getting lost. In the very beginning, I had one of the first COVID dream I had. No, I don't have COVID, by the way, but in the time of COVID. One of the first dreams I had, I was in China. I have never been to China before and really don't have an interest in going. But there was a man there that didn't have a mask on, and he was bringing people together to celebrate, and nobody had masks on. I said, oh, that must mean we're going to get through this okay, ultimately okay. And back then, most of us thought, oh yeah, 2 weeks quarantine, everything will be fine. And some of us are still, while we're not totally on lockdown, we're still separating ourselves physically from other people. We're still wearing masks. We're still doing a lot of hand washing. Our lives have, I can't say ours, but my life in many ways has shrunk, but it's also gotten broader. And I'll explain about that in a minute. But that was my first dream. And then a dream that came after that, and this ties in with my work as a Hug Mobster, which is also what I'm called, that I dreamed that people could hug again. And in this dream, people were hugging back to back, or they were hugging front to back, like spooning, but we weren't yet hugging this way. And I thought, okay, that's hopeful. So as my dreams, as the time has worn on and my dreams have gotten more intense, I do lucid dreaming where I say, okay, if I'm not really, thrilled with the idea of being chased by Nazis, I'm going to wake up, or I'm going to turn around and face them, which is what I did in some of the dreams. And I use my dreams as fodder for everything that I do. Like, okay, what's this telling me?
As I said at the beginning, you're known as the Hug Lady or the Hug Mobster. What
Mhm.
does the Hug Lady do when she's not allowed to hug?
I've written on that topic, and I just spoke at an interfaith community I'm part of, and it was called "What's a Hugger to Do When a Hugger Can't Hug?" A little bit of background so people know where that name came from. Valentine's Day weekend 2014, I brought a group of friends to 30th Street Station, which is a big train station in Philadelphia, for a free hugs flash mob. And I wanted people to understand that Valentine's Day is not just one day of the year, and that love isn't just something we celebrate between couples. It's for everybody. So there were a dozen of us that came, and at 12 o'clock, we unleashed ourselves on 30th Street Station, and we walked around with free hug signs. And we asked people if they'd like hugs. And it's all by consent. We didn't do any kamikaze, swoop by hugs with anybody. They had to say yes in order for us to hug them. And I estimate that within the hour's time that we did it, we hugged a few hundred people. The one that stands out to me is a gentleman who approached us and said he was an Iraq war vet and that he was the only survivor of his platoon, and he had survivor's guilt. He had thought about ending his life. And he said, until I met you people, can I join you? So of course we were crying, excuse me, and we gave him his free hug sign. He was off to the races. And my thought was, wow, hugs save lives. I didn't realize how poignant that statement was till 5 months later, when on the way home from the gym, I had a heart attack. I was 55 years old. I've been going to the gym 5 or 6 times a week, eating what I thought was a pretty healthy diet, but I was working 12 to 14-hour days as a therapist in an outpatient drug and alcohol rehab, sleeping maybe 5 or 6 hours a night, working also as a journalist, a minister, a speaker. Um, all of those things were happening, and I was busy giving out, but not taking a whole lot in. So right after the heart attack, as I was doing cardiac rehab, I thought, I'm going to, walk through my little town of Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which is in Bucks County, about an hour outside of Philly. And I said, why don't I combine the hugging with the walking? Because hugs are heart friendly, not just cardiac friendly, or not just emotionally heart friendly, but cardiac friendly as well. And friends started calling us Hug Mobsters, like flash mob, hug mob. And I said, oh, mobsters, guns, drugs. I don't think so. I said, but what about Hug Mobsters Armed with Love? So one of our friends is an artist, and he was one of the people that was there originally. He drew, I forgot to bring it out with me here, but he drew a little heart with hands, and then the Hug Mobsters Armed with Love words on there. And then another friend commissioned another local artist to make me signs that I carry around that says Hug Mobsters Armed with Love.
How do you deal with the loss of that connection?
Well, like a lot of people, I live alone. I have wonderful, loving friends and family, but for the first 11 weeks, I did not touch another human being. If you can imagine that, somebody who's incredibly tactile, who not only hugs friends and family, but strangers on the street, and all of a sudden it was like, nothing. And it was like being in a vacuum. Now, I'm not prone to anxiety or depression, but as a result of that experience, I started feeling that. And I thought, is this what some of my clients are like, going through? Because I'm a therapist as well. And I said, all right, I need to be able to find a way to connect that may not involve touch at the moment. So I had, I did Zoom calls with people. I would text, different friends to stay in touch with them, like literally emotionally staying in touch with them. But to handle the physical aspect of lack of touch, I would hug pillows. I would put a heating pad on. What else would I do? Self-massage, Reiki. For those who don't know, it's an energy healing modality. What else? Oh, teddy bears. I'd snuggle with teddy bears. I'd hug trees. I would, when I would take a shower, I would like really feel the lather, be very mindful of it, put on lotion, those kind of things.
And Edie, we were talking about hugging, and I think it just shows the need for that kind of that physical connection that we probably took for granted before this pandemic got to us.
I think people have skin hunger, which is just as important to me as food hunger, because skin is our single largest organ. So when people are deprived of nurturing touch by consent, they fail to thrive. Just like babies, if they're not given enough love and attention, adults do too. Among people that are socially isolated, even before this, there's higher rates of depression, anxiety, suicidality, addiction. So hugs are not a cure-all, but they certainly go a long way to help people get through all of that.
I wanted to get into that because since we're for the large degree not able to have that connection, it's led to a lot of people being prone to depression or having the loneliness get to them. So what suggestions do you have for them to regain a sense of connection, regain that feel?
Well, first of all, I encourage them to stay in touch however they can with the people in their lives. I remember when this all started was around Passover. So some of my friends gathered together and we did a Zoom Seder. So, people have been having brunch and dinner together online. People have been having dates online. So activities that you would normally do can be done through technology as well. It's not the same, but it's pretty close. One of the other things that I did prior to, as a friend of mine says, in the before times, was a workshop called Cuddle Party. And that's, excuse me, a workshop for adults that focuses on boundary setting, communication, and safe, nurturing, non-sexual, platonic touch by consent. So I was doing them at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. And what people will do is get together in PJs, sweats or yoga clothes, blankets on the floor, pillows, teddy bears, and there'd be a whole workshop around nurturing touch. And I had to stop that. I've been doing it since 2005, I think. Yeah, so when I started doing them. So for a few months, I was doing virtual cuddle parties, which may sound bizarre because couldn't touch anybody, but we did self massage, hugging, we did meditations, we did communication and boundary setting exercises around the concept of touch. And it wasn't specifically about the touch that appealed to people. It was, I see you, I'm not here in my own little cave, because a lot of the people that came to it live alone, or they have, if they're in a relationship with somebody, that their partner might be in a high risk job, so they didn't see each other. So that's one way to stay in contact. Like a lot of spiritual services are now online. So if you belong to a spiritual community, you can go to a service, whether it's a church, a synagogue, a temple, a mosque. You can pray with other people from a distance. And the cool thing about it is you don't have to get dressed, you don't have to put shoes on. You go in your PJs if you want. So that way people know they are not alone, because the reality is this is something the entire world is going through together.
So, but if you are still feeling that, sense of, loss,
Mhm.
aside from being on, some sort of social connection, what else could somebody do?
I visit friends, like I have my dear friend, my 86-year-old mentor, Dr. Yvonne Kay, lives alone, and we have our front porch visits. I go over there, and I sit with her. And I have a cousin that I visit. We sit like 20 feet away, and her dog was the conduit between us. So actually, Maddie was the first living, breathing being that I hugged before I was able to reconnect with my kids. So she's a chocolate lab, and she kept running back and forth between us. And this muddy, dirty dog jumped into my lap, and I was not about to let her go. So I got to cuddle with Maddie. So if there are animals in your life, you can do that. If there are people that you're used to spending time with at a socially distanced gathering, you can do that.
What are some of the other ways that we can fill ourselves up with joy?
Okay. Well, first of all, decide for yourself what lights you up from the inside and turns you into a human sparkler. That's what I encourage people to do. And for some people, it's art. For some people, it's music. Some people, it's meditation, yoga, gardening, dancing, drumming. What else? Painting, sculpting, baking, whatever your creative outlet is, do that, because that's going to fill you up. I encourage people to hug themselves and rock. I encourage people to remember somebody in their lives when they were a child, perhaps, that loved them enough to hold their, not hold their pain.
How can people find out more about you and your work?
Thank you. I have a website. It's www.optimistical, OPTI-MYSTICAL.com. And where that name came from was I had a dream that, again, I have a lot of dreams where messages come through, and the voice said, "You're not just an optimist, you're an optimistic who sees the world through the eyes of possibility." So that's my website. There's a form on there that people can make requests for whatever services I offer. And I'm on Facebook under Edie Weinstein, EDIEWEINSTEIN. That's the place that I'm the most visible in the world.
We have been speaking about how to achieve happiness with the Hug Lady, Edie Weinstein.